All right, let's talk about ways you can heal from depression. This is a topic near and dear to my heart, something I've struggled with for a long time, but I finally got into remission, so I'm excited to share that with you today. Depression is at epidemic levels. I'm obviously something that's been part of our life and society for a long time, but it's really especially been difficult this last few years. But let's talk about ways you can reduce your chronic depression or cyclical depression there. Again, I suffered with it almost my entire adult life. Just a few years ago, I had a breakthrough with some work I did internally that just opened up a whole new person. It was incredible. So I want to share that with you. But I'm living proof. You don't have to suffer with this. There are things you can do. And even alongside working with a therapist or other techniques, this can really help you, if not completely, put yours into remission potentially. So, okay, hi, I'm Dr. Jason McCammon, board certified naturopathic doctor, also known as a root cause triangulation specialist. Okay, let's talk about a few things, kind of go over a little structure here. First, if you are feeling suicidal, if you're planning to hurt yourself, please dial 988 to get help. Okay, make sure you get help right away. This video is not meant to offer that type of acute help. Okay, second, this is going to be my personal battle with depression and talking about what worked for me and my clients. I'm not a therapist, but again, I think there's so many different tools that we have to learn from each other, even outside of therapy. Okay, and then another clarification is that we're really discussing more mild to moderate chronic depression. This is not clinical depression, which is extremely serious. This is not depression with suicidal ideation or other mental illness that we're going to discuss today. So I want to be clear about that. And then keep in mind too, depression is really, think of it like an outcome of many different processes or layers. Okay, it's not just one thing. We can just point to one item, even one medication or one technique and say, oh, that was it. It's not something like the cold or flu that's simply just a virus going through our body. There's many layers to this. So keep that in mind. So if we work on each layer of our internal ecosystem, especially, it actually can really improve the risk factors in depression and reduce the onset of it and the severity of it a lot. So keep that in mind, multifaceted here. All right, go over a couple things here. First, contributing factors. I don't want to say causes because that's more of a medical thing. Let's talk about contributing factors. Of course, childhood trauma. Really important to process through that if you haven't already. High stress careers, of course, just very demanding. Everybody trying to, get their best from you every day. It can be really difficult. Then have enough energy, mental energy left to maintain your own life and your family. Domestic environment is really big. We'll talk more about that later, but who you're around, the energy you're around is really important, of course. Nutrient deficiency is one of the top. That's a big one, and that one often can be more easily corrected than many other things. So that's huge. Studies are continuing to find that more and more nutrient deficiencies of our body and our brain especially means our neurotransmitters can't do their job. They can't bind to the right receptor site. Serotonin isn't doing its job. Dopamine, all those things that need to work together. They can't do that unless they have the raw material. Okay, keep that in mind. Gut health, I continue to talk about this in almost everything I do. I'm telling you, gut health. You got to work on that. It doesn't have to be perfect, but got to improve it. If you're having indigestion, food sensitivities, leaky gut, things like that, it's going to raise these markers in your blood and these chemicals, these inflammatory chemicals that are going to affect your brain. There's a lot of research coming out on that. Check out Dr. Rhonda Patrick's work in gut, and she relates this to a lot of latest research on the brain and its effects from being directly impacted by gut health there. And then systemic inflammation is big. If you have your entire body is inflamed, what does that mean? It means your cells can't communicate. We could have acidic cellular pH. Again, nutrient deficiencies, could have insulin resistance. Just a lot of dysfunction going on throughout your own body. Your brain is going to be a reflection of what's going on in your entire body. So we've got to work on whole body health to work on brain health and gut health. Of course, as we already talked about, is big with systemic inflammation. A low omega-3, high omega-6 diet. This is really underrated, and I really try to highlight it when I can. Omega-3s are a huge percentage of the brain tissue, the fat that makes up the brain. It's a huge percentage of that. You've got to have more omega-3s in the diet. And if you're vegan, there are algae forms out there. I would be careful about your source, of course, being sure it's really quality tested for heavy metals, contaminants, and etc. There's some great brands out there that we could talk about, but omega-3s are big. If you can't eat fish, grass-fed beef, pastured dairy, things like that, then let's go ahead and supplement. You've got to get that in your body. I just can't stress that enough. And high omega-6s, they're essential. They're considered an essential fat, but we can get them everywhere. Okay, you don't have to add them to your diet. Some people are misinformed there. Omega-6s are going to be almost everywhere, but including the big ones are your vegetable oils like soybean oil, safflower, sunflower, vegetable oil, and canola, things like that. We want to minimize those just because we can get sixes almost everywhere. You can barely, eat a vegetable and not get omega-6. So while it's essential, because we can get it everywhere, we want to reduce that and raise omega-3. That changes the ratio of inflammation in your body. That can really help brain health and mental health. Pain is really big. Of course, pain can really cause your brain to have feedback, which says, I'm not okay. And then that can make depression, a little bit worse there. Mindset is really big, of course. Mindset is more of like, okay, no matter what the situation is, what's my mental resilience or toughness like, and how am I able to have intellectual resilience and intellectual intelligence to really process this, or emotional intelligence is really what I'm looking for. How am I going to be able to process this situation? So mindset's big. Lack of sleep, of course. Sleep affects everything. We got to make sure we're getting that good rhythm in there and getting at least 6 solid hours. If you get 7, 8, that's great. And medications and placebo effect, let's talk for a second. This is published science, okay? This is not theory. There are published studies, many of them, showing that oftentimes medications, as a physician is prescribing them and the patient's taking them, just the act of them being listened to and being prescribed something to put in their body has the effect of helping them feel better mentally. And in fact, the placebo, which is when they give people a sugar pill, right? They give them like nothing, no active compound, and then they say, hey, they're feeling better. That group, or the placebo group that had no active medication, does just about as good as the medication group in most studies on most psychoactive drugs. So while I'm not advocating or talking about getting off drugs, please don't do that without the supervision of a physician or qualified healthcare professional. I'm just saying, let's educate and understand that when the brain thinks we're getting healthier, you actually can get healthier. You don't always need that medication. So let's just keep that in mind. And then again, published studies show this, that medications often increase suicidal thoughts, can often make depression sometimes worse. So let's keep in mind that we really should do more than just looking at medication, although sometimes that may be necessary. All right, let's go into the next group of things. Let's talk about auditing your life. This is really important. Again, depression has many, many layers to it. Let's talk about a lot of those layers and how to unpack those and what we can do about them. And yes, I have done this personally. I've done this with clients. It is really, really effective. You've got to do this next section first before what we're going to talk about later really kicks in and helps. Okay, so let's talk about where we are and why we are there. Meaning you're in your situation in life, whether it be career, domestically, whatever's going on with you, you're there for a reason. You got to really honestly just accept that and say, okay, these things are happening to me because of choices I made. And it's not about being judgmental of yourself or hardening yourself, but you have to realize, okay, if I made decisions to get here, I can make decisions to get myself out of here or into a better place. So it's first that first step of recognizing this isn't just happening to me out of happenstance and just random, decisions you made led to where you're at. So again, that can be, just the reverse is true too, right? We can make decisions and improve our life and our health. Okay, let's talk about your career. There's a big difference between just getting a paycheck, like you're just working somewhere just for the money. Okay, that's not very fulfilling. You're not going to feel great about going in there every day. More likely to not really enjoy a huge chunk of your life. Remember, almost a third of our waking time or just of our life is spent at work, working for a paycheck, right? And that's going to be really difficult to do day in, day out if you don't like being there. And then think about that versus a vocation. Vocation is something where you have a skill and you kind of look forward to a little bit. You could probably do it for a number of years, and that's great. And that's where we want to be at least minimum. And then a passion is ideal. A passion is you can't wait to get to work the next day, right? You can't wait to work with that next person or get to that next project. That's a passion. If we can get paid for that, you're going to really have a lot of satisfaction with your work life. So think about those three things: paycheck versus vocation versus passion. And obviously we're working always toward passion when we can, okay? It can take years though, we gotta be patient. Home life is big. Having supportive spouse or family around you is really, really important. If you don't have that, something to work toward. And then we've got family as far as dealing with toxic people. Gotta be careful. Again, I know we can't just, leave family. They're kind of part of our structure. If you're married into family or you have relatives, I get it. but we need to minimize our time with toxic people. Okay. And then socially, though, we have a lot more latitude, right? We don't really have to be around people socially. If they're toxic, if they're cancerous, we've got to stay away from these people. And you'll notice if you really audit your life and really stop and think about it and kind of think about looking at it from the outside in, really think about that for a second and take some time to go through this, you'll find, am I really hanging out with people that have my best interests at heart? Do they really love me for me, or are they trying to get something out of me? Okay. And segueing into what narcissists are. Narcissists, a true narcissist is someone who isn't just self-centered, but they manipulate you, almost like gaslighting. They just really make you believe that you're always wrong or you're always way off base, and you know they can't possibly have anything, any blame or responsibility for the situation. If you're dealing with a true narcissist in your life, you've got to move away from that person. I mean, honestly, I don't care if they're your spouse. You've got to either work on counseling, you've got to work on healing that somehow. You've got to move away from that. That person's extremely negative, extremely toxic, and no matter how much internal work you do, you're gonna have trouble trying to overcome all that negativity from a true narcissist. That's really big. I've had to work with a lot of clients that are stuck in those situations, and again, you're in that situation for a reason because of decisions you made, right? We can look at decisions to get you out of there, right? Okay. Hobbies are big. I think that's fallen by the wayside a little bit because people are either, at work, running around doing errands, maybe kid activities, and we kind of lost this thing of a pastime or hobby that really helps kind of let negative energy sink out of our body, distracts our mind from some problems, and it just makes you happy, frankly. We just need to do things that make us happy, right? Let's look at a hobby, okay? And are you making self-care time? That is so huge. Being on your phone or on a device or, kind of watching TV, okay, it's self-care time, but really could it be a little bit more effective with, again, meditation, mindfulness, stretching, a fitness routine, deep breathing, a walk out in nature, like that kind of self-care time is what I'm talking about. Like really look and see, is there 10 minutes I can do throughout the day? I can sneak away or just close my eyes and take a nap, whatever it is, but really looking for more peace. But if you have nervous energy, get up and move. That's actually better than sitting still if you have a little bit of nervous energy or anxiety, okay? Let's look at that. All right, so the next section we're going to talk about is really to pull this all together, okay? You've got to do the audit your life first there, and then this one will be really super effective. It'll blow you away how amazing it works, but you've got to audit your life first, okay? I'm going to introduce this next section, and then I really want you to go get the book and read it for yourself. You've got to really take ownership of this whole process and don't just take notes from me. I think it's great to start there, but get this book, okay, and work through it. It's really amazing what can happen. The book is called The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, okay? Incredible. And this guy's perspective, I think, can really help you. It's helped a lot of clients. And it's helped me tremendously. I've recited these every day for like the last almost about 3 years, I kid you not. And I just kept reciting them, kept working through it, became much more self-aware of when these situations would happen to me. And I just kept falling back on them and saying, hey, am I really living by these principles? And it really helped me unlock things like it's been phenomenal. So let's talk about them briefly, introduce them, and then we'll move on from there. I want you to follow up with that book, okay? So be impeccable with your word. This is both internal and external. If you really stopped and audited this in your life, you'd be amazed. Most people will speak more negatively about themselves than they do other people, okay? Obviously, we want to be kind and polite and respectful at least to other folks around us, of course, but especially remember, you have to be impeccable with your word to yourself. We got to work on that, okay? If you're putting yourself down, if you're like, man, I suck at this, or, I'm just, I can never get that right. I've always sucked at X, Y, Z, or just never been good at that. If you're always negative and in your own head, you're the first person that's going to, you're the most important person on your team, let me put it that way. So you've got to first, talk to yourself. Your dialogue has to be really quality first. So work on that. It can be tough. I had a problem with this myself, but let's work on it. The most dangerous things we can do, by the way, is talk, right? Words are the most dangerous things there are, because words can heal, they can create peace, they can also start wars, right? So we've got to work on impeccable with your word. Don't take things personally was my number one of these 4. It may not be for you, but wow, just when people would say things or people would get maybe a little snippety with me, a situation wouldn't go my way, whatever it was, I would take it so personal as if that person or that situation was meant to hurt me or harm me. And when I really read this book and it really hit me and I realized, wait a minute, that person is stuck in their own reality. They've got their own situation they're dealing with. they weren't actually personally trying to attack me or hurt me. It was just, I took it like that. And when you start releasing and letting go from taking it personally, it's incredible what's going to happen in your life and what can unlock. It's incredible. Do bad stuff still happen and people still mean sometimes? Yes, of course. But again, it's all in your mindset and how you take that. Don't make assumptions is a big one. That's the third of the 4 agreements. Making assumptions is not just, hey, I bet so-and-so probably put dinner in the oven, okay, and they didn't. It's not just that. I mean, that's a little thing, but I'm talking like a good way to put it is what people think of you is none of your business. I know that sounds a little in your face, but think about it right now. If you're walking around thinking, well, man, I wonder if I said the wrong thing to that person at work, or I wonder if I just didn't type that right text to, you know, that loved one or so-and-so or a friend, and maybe they think what, you can drive yourself crazy with just making these assumptions that whatever you did or didn't do or could have said differently, it just drives you nuts because it's never going to, you never really know what their thoughts are on a situation, right? So you end up making up things in your head, and oftentimes they become negative, and you end up with this whole persona that is really not actually reality. It's not happening. We don't know what that person thinks about what you said or did or what you didn't say or do. So you can't worry about it. I know it's easier said than done, but don't worry about things you can't control. You can't control what someone else thinks about the way you said something, the clothes you wear, the car you drive, whatever. Let's not make assumptions anymore. And if you need to, if this person is important to you, then seek to understand. You know, politely go ask them about their thoughts on a subject and you'll know. But I found that was big. And the last one, always do your best. This is huge too, guys. Really, your best is going to look different depending on the situation. It's going to look different. So if you're fighting, you know, a cold or flu, if you don't feel well, if you're fighting a serious illness, your best is going to look different than if you're in, you know, tip-top shape and you're running 5 miles a day and you just feel amazing, right? So remember that. So oftentimes our best doesn't always look the same, okay? You have to do the best you can for the given situation and move on from there, okay? So this is just a little introduction to the 4 agreements that really tremendously helped me change my life. But I really want you to work on understanding some of the contributing factors to depression and the auditing your life. That's so important. We've got to look at our environment around us and our ecosystem, and then take action by actually using things like the 4 agreement, these mantras and these little sayings that you can use as little principles to help you redirect and reframe things. Let's take action on these 3 sections and go from there. Do the best we can, okay? All right, so I'm gonna direct your attention over to a free ebook there. Okay, you can find me at drjasonnd.com. So it's DR, standard spelling Jason, ND as a naturopathic doctor.com. I've written this Vibrant Health Breakthrough ebook. It's just packed full of great information. Love you to check it out. Give me feedback on that. But I think it's going to really help you out. Okay? All right. Until next time, you be well. You take care. Talk soon. Bye-bye.